People, we're back. I'm Mike Wahle. This is Block Party. Thanks for watching. Green Bay Packers stuff all the time. NFL stuff some of the time. Caffeine and kilos most of the time. Packers tied 40-40 Dallas Cowboys. Did not think this was going to – this is not on anybody's bingo card, man. Like, this is one of those games where you look back and I don't know how a team can score 40 points and you're still going, we could have had more. We could have had more, but they could have had more. Listen, we talked about it a lot on Andy Herman's shows the last couple of days as well, but I really just want to get into the tape, break down what I saw specifically in this game from the offense. I think if I gave you a tape of the defense, it would just be we're watching like War and Peace, where it's like reading War and Peace or something. There's a whole saga there. So I'm gonna get right into the tape, guys. Check us out on Process to Perform. Check us out on the Pack a Day podcast. Obviously, hit me up, Mike Wahle 68 on Twitter. And, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Please keep the questions coming. I really appreciate you guys for staying engaged. And let's get right to the tape and do a little brief summary afterwards.
All right, we're going to go back to this try it again. I didn't get a great screenshot last time. It's way too bright, and apologies. I'll keep working on it, but I really don't know what the issue is. Let's go back and watch some of these plays again from this Dallas game where we did score 40 points. Look, Matt LaFleur said it yesterday, and we're always just talking about how can you get better. It's like the business is how do you get better? How do you beat the guy in front of you? And sometimes maybe I have a different perspective on this than other people, but the reality is like that's the approach we take here, at least on this show. So we go. I think this is the second play of the game, and we talked about it before. There's just a ton of like eye candy and action back here, but what gets lost is just the kind of the very basic stuff. So we go motion. So we're going orbit motion here, which means Golden's coming around the top. And then we're going to pull. We got down blocks. We got a back block here and big hinge action there. We got a lead and we're through. There's just a lot of compression. The other thing that that isn't lost on this is that we're 5 yards off the ball here with Josh Jacobs, and all that really means is if you're 5 yards off, there's not a lot of room for penetration here across the line. So this guy gets upfield, which he does right here. We've got issues now. One of the things that we've talked about before, and we'll probably continue to talk about this on this show, is 70's not looking in as much now because the ball's going away, and he's got his eyes on 97 because he's got a hinge. But you got three guys with the snap count that have issues. You also have all this eye candy in the backfield. You understand why they're doing it. But now as we let this play unfold, you see that Elgton Jenkins, whether he's expecting more, I'm sure he's expecting more from Kennard. As far as Kennard's got to get, this guy is not, 13's not a priority. 97's a priority. We got to get all the way over. And this is just it's a bad way to start the football game. You just don't have anything you feel good about here, and it's all happening right at the line of scrimmage. So this kind of like these are plays that as you go back through the game, you're like, we shouldn't have to correct this. Like this isn't this isn't a thing that we feel as an offense at this level we should be having to correct. And particularly when you talk about, Jenkins is taking a good step back. He's got a long ways to go. Does he need to get his pad level lower? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, probably. It's just kind of a general maybe observation of him anyways. But it really comes down to whether or not this player is going to get himself over there and just do what is necessary, because 13 is really not part of this game. So we end up taking that. The good news is here, as you move forward with one of the bigger plays early in the game, this is where you just kind of start thinking like, boy, this is going to be a massive, massive, massive game for the Green Bay Packers. So they're supposed to be running halves here. So they've got this guy dropping a halves. He's playing cloud. Now, he's opened like he's playing cloud. There's nobody getting back. You have your Mike linebacker trying to catch, because this was a bunch release or a three receiver side. He's trying to get with Matthew Golden. Now, Matthew Golden's got probably more of like that kind of route. So we've got something that looks a little bit more like that with the flat. But because he wins so early, they got everybody running to the same place. And because they don't run proper halves over there on defense, they have a busted coverage. We got hands up. We got everything going on here, right? So whether he's supposed to sit it down. So the other option obviously is we've got the we've got the corner, and he's supposed to hook this up or maybe bang out here. But when you win by that much, you beat. It's like shit, man. You beat two guys. I beat two guys, man. I'm putting my hand up too. It's I mean, let's be honest here. I never would. But this is one of those situations where unfortunate situation. Probably a touchdown, ended up scoring either way, but busted coverage. And this is kind of what you saw from the Dallas Cowboys is, they have all day to throw the football. So you got this just straight shotgun. They bring four because they drop the end, but they don't loop out. Like everything about this play from a defensive standpoint is just busted up. So we got 2nd and 4. All right, 12 personnel. You start in kind of a wing look. You go to what really amounts to split right slot, and you're going to run the counter again. And you're just doing the same play you just did, except you bring Tucker Kraft from here back to here, but you're still pulling with the kick out. You got the down block, you got the back block, you got the lead through, and then you should be Golden Grams here. But particularly, they're this is kind of a weird deal, and you see this a lot, but they're playing this guy like an apex with the safety over the top, and you don't know if they're rotating down or not, but obviously rotating down to this side wouldn't make a ton of sense given where their linebackers are lined up. But let's look at this from the end zone copy. And you'll just see there's just part of this is just because the way they're handing the ball off, and they're trying to do a good job of kind of disguising and not look. There's a couple things to talk about here. Obviously, you talk about penetration from the last time. Make sure this is not a penetrating play. We got good down blocks. We have angles, and like since it's a light box, everything it lines up really well, right? Where this guy is tells a huge story about what kind of plays are available. For example, if he's back behind the quarterback and he's this wide, they're probably not running it straight across. That means they're probably coming downhill, or they can be coming downhill here, right? And they're trying to hide, I think, a lot of times where they line up because they don't want to put Jacobs in the pistol necessarily. Pistol puts you, if he's 5 yards deep right now, realistically, the pistol, he's 8 yards deep. It just makes things much more difficult. But sometimes as you play this and read it out, okay, so you got the contact here. Everything looks good. Now, we have our shoulders turned so we can't get upfield, but you look, you got this smack dab. Now, the problem is we wrong shouldered here. When you wrong shoulder, generally, if I can back up, when you wrong shoulder, 41 wrong shoulders this at the last minute. Now, they probably know that from a game plan standpoint, but when you think you're going to wrong shoulder, generally speaking, you kind of know that you're not going to be able to kick this guy out. Like wrong shoulder means kick, it's going to be, we call it a log block. So when you log block it, then this guy wants to bounce it, right? Now, whether or not this is a new thing for the Dallas Cowboys, I didn't do enough tape research to study this before, and they're expecting to play this guy outside. They kind of play this so that we're trying to kick out a log, which is very, very difficult to do. But we lead up and see Josh Jacobs kind of sees that block and tries to jump outside here. Obviously, of course, he's a great player. He can get some yards, but it's very, very difficult. It kind of plays into the defense's hand. Okay, 3rd and 5 here. They've got really was a loose bunch. They go motion across the 2x2, and they set up this screen. You love the call, and they go man coverage here. So what you love about this play, and we'll kind of hit on it because it matters later, but when you got man coverage, you got to identify the man player, and you got to run right at him. Obviously, you got the player upfield here, and then Elgton Jenkins is going to come through and just play that Mike linebacker. Obviously, we can get all the way up here, and really, you just have this safety player that you kind of have to worry about. So, this play is tailor-made for man coverage, particularly when they're playing off, and this is a lot easier. Just so for people out there who don't watch tight end screens versus running back screens a lot, this is a lot easier to identify, I think, from an alignment perspective because that guy's already in the alley and he's 10 yards back. So, let's check it out. We get up. Now, Jenkins is taking a good angle here. If Tucker Kraft wants to cut this back, that's on him. Obviously, great run. Gets you all the way down here. I think Dobbs scores his first of 3 touchdowns. 1st and 10 play, and you've got your 12 personnel really with the trip side here. That's off a wing, so they've got kind of a nasty split. They go motion across for Dontavian Wicks to the outside. And these are the plays where, we'll just watch. This ends up working out really well, right? But these are the plays where it works out well despite. And I'll show you which I mean specifically. Josh Jacobs makes an amazing cut here. So, first things first, We're under center. I think that puts everybody in an advantage. So they're going off of the actual snap count now. So you can see, everyone's got their heads in a relatively, a position where they can kind of see everything. So they can go off a regular snap count. What's going to end up happening on this play is they go motion across. When you go fat, we call this fast motion. So fast motion is just like, we're kind of like running across, not jogging across. And that actually just, they have to make a decision where they want to rock and roll the safeties or they want to just bump everybody. So they decide to bump everybody over here. And sometimes, with the Packers, they don't necessarily, or a lot of teams now with these new offenses, they make their call here and then they just keep it. And so what that does, and you'll see this, again, this is why sometimes these plays work despite. So you've got a couple things happening here that just are not like really great. First of all, we get beat inside. Now, I don't know for me, because if you remike this, which, for us, you might be able to get away with some sort of like triple call here, even though this guy was a 2-eye. Jenkins does a good job of popping back. But what I want to show you is Sean Ryan's chasing the same guy that Jordan Morgan's chasing, and we don't even block 59, right? And the whole reason you motion across, you're probably trying to gather information early in the down, whether or the game, whether or not they're going to bump this, they're going to rock and roll it, they're going to play man, etc. But when they do bump this, you would think, generally speaking, like, this, if Mike Crew's in there and Flanagan's going to remike the linebackers immediately, so we're not chasing this guy out. You watch Sean Ryan here; he takes 2 steps, and Sean Ryan's literally chasing 57 when 59's just right here, and that puts obviously our backside tight end at a disadvantage. So everybody has like poor leverage. Should have made the tackle here. Obviously got beat. And then Josh Jacobs just makes a cut, makes it happen, which is fantastic. But these are the plays. Again, there's always meat on the bone because he's really running on one of those 2 safeties. If they change this at all, 1st and 10 play here. You've got this great double look that they motion over to trips, under center play action. Not much about this play except for we are letting guys through. And again, this is kind of the stuff where you'll see this from the end zone copy maybe, but we've got a great – so these are under center play action passes. And if you watch the preview show, like this is all you can eat, exactly what you want. You feel great about everything here. And then for whatever reason, we've got, this should be down and back, and this is down and locked in. And for whatever reason, Sean Ryan bails, and so they just leave the 3 technique. And he ends up getting a push on Jordan Love. Maybe he rushes the throw, so it's incomplete. You never know. So we got 2nd and 20 here, empty. And he gets flushed. And again, the only reason you bring these plays up is really just because we didn't see the Dallas Cowboys getting pressure. And so you see all these deep routes. So he has his outlet all the way on the top here. But you've really got, all these routes that are occurring outside of 15 yards deep. And you've got your linebackers in a ton of space. And so what are the options and opportunities that you talk about in this kind of, when this defense has to play the shell look, they've got all these linebackers deep. The closest guy is here that's not, covering your check down. You've got your quarterback scrambles, you got your check downs over here, you got potential screens, etc., right? Because everybody's so far back. And I know this is a 2nd 20 play, but this is the kind of stuff that you expected to see during the course of the entire game. The difference was in some situations here, and again, we scored 40 points. They did get pressure that you didn't expect to see. But they do a good job here. Sean Ryan, you like his feet. You don't want him to – he kind of like double clutches with his hands a little bit. You show his hands early. By the way, I mean, we can go over as many times as you guys want, but this is difficult. This is difficult. It makes the game much, much, much harder. Sean Ryan double clutches with his hands there, and then is extended, arm over. He doesn't do a bad job here, right? And you got to remember, the hardest part about this really is these guys are not, the two guys on the right aren't veterans. Really a first-year full-time starter, and then somebody that just came in, a couple weeks ago. And I think they do a pretty decent job, but for whatever reason, Jordan, it's not open right away. Jordan feels the pressure. He can leave. He exits. 54 just does a good job of going down the line and not trying to chase him. Has to throw the ball away. So we got 3rd and 20. I just love this football play, so I wanted to put it on here. I love these inside tunnel screens. So when this guy catches the ball, I love these plays, man. They're just so smart. You got block. We're going here. You got out here. And so really you're booking, kind of the designated player. And now you've got this up and all the way through, and you're really running on, you're running on here. You really got to make one guy miss, and you probably have a first down. I mean, it's a stat stuffer. Get your guys involved. Gets an easy catch and throw, a little win, even though you're probably coming off the field. It's kind of like low risk, high reward for me. I love these plays. Just thought we'd throw it in there. I mean, he's not that far away. Those are phenomenal plays, especially when you're playing against a soft zone defense. All right, 3rd and 4 play here. We got a bunch, immediately motion across. Now, this is like we talked about a fast motion. That is not. This is actually a shift. So we go to 2x2 with a tight end attached. Under center run. Josh Jacobs makes something happen here. Now, one of the things that you watch from prior games is that these guys aren't running a lot of stunts. Now, I think they end up running a cross dog here. And because Sean Ryan does a nice job, and we'll watch his footwork before I speak too soon, I think he does a nice job with his footwork. We got a 1-2 and down and kind of pushes that guy across. What you'd love to see here, and again, this is just, it's always tough with some of these plays to figure out which direction the ball's supposed to go. So, like, for example, in this scenario, it seems somewhat obvious that we got to, we got a double here. 1, 2, 1, 2, probably blocking out, maybe blocking up. And so if you see this enough and you have plays, it would be nice to be able to say, can we bring this, because we're going to run downhill and we can actually end up bouncing this outside. But those, again, you just never know what the checks are here. This is a pretty good job of picking this thing up. Obviously, Josh Jacobs does a great job of finding his way through. I think the thing you don't like is I don't understand the blocking concept here between Jenkins and Morgan, because they're both kind of stepping in to this. You would think you'd have like a bumper and like a horsepower guy there, and because of that he gets beat over the top. But them's the breaks. Great job by Jacobs. Really 2 jump cuts. Ugh, that's faster than I am, I'll tell you that. All right, here we go. Another bunch. Now you got a tight end in a position where he can block, he can go backside, anything. So he ends up blocking. We got the pass pro. But they end up getting pressure. And we'll play this through and just watch 70, our right tackle, obviously filling in for Zach Tom. And this is just kind of what we didn't expect, right? And this guy has a good set. He's in a decent position. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, you like to see his hands a little bit higher. In other words, a little bit different profile. But he's got a great profile as far as there's no numbers on the screen. He's got his shoulders, hips, knees, and toes all pointed towards the line of scrimmage. Obviously, you'd like to see that. I'm in the middle of a set, so whether his stagger is going to be a little bit wider or his base is going to be a little bit wider. So what ends up happening on these plays, and if you don't find the success that maybe you're expecting, is that you open your hands up. And so now when you've gone and you've kicked your foot back again, so now you've actually got this decent stagger, this arm's out, so you're attacking this inside hand. And because you're not at quarterback level, but you're getting there, if you press and then rip underneath, so if I just press and then rip backside hand, I'm feeling pretty good about that because I'm going to win this chest plate. So he's got to put it out there, check down. Get that split back look again. I love this play. This is going to be like a signature Jordan Love play in the game, but you just, start from the top here. So they bring in their second running back, motion across, and then they're just running clearouts. I mean, they have route opportunities on this, but at the end of it, you're looking at like, I got one guy and my best guy with the ball in his hands. Everybody else on this side of the field is either 20 yards back or open to the line. I mean, all these guys are down, just pushing. And you got to feel really good about this play. I love this play. Obviously, Jordan gets them the ball in a non-traditional way, which kind of allows us to kind of appreciate his athleticism. And he ends up really running this like an option and taking that backside linebacker out of it completely. He could have just kept this ball and run. But that's a design deal, and it was a fantastic play call, fantastic execution. Love the way that the fullback ended up being real patient on that as well. So we go motion back in, and now they are going backside. And we just had, for whatever reason, you can't put your finger on it. I have an idea I've talked about now numerous times. We'll just go to the end zone copy on this. And Jenkins is struggling here with a 2-eye, and they're going to run. They have a tight end attached, but they're going to run backside here. There's two things going on that I'm not quite sure about. We can either say this is a Jenkins thing or this is a Jordan Morgan thing, because they do such a good job adjusting on the backside. So we got slants, and because we got slants, Sean Ryan picks up. Kennard comes here and then goes back into it, and really this is where the plays are, where you shut the door here. Unfortunately, we got the split flow back, so he's going to be able to pick up maybe 59 if he comes off the edge. So you got a monster play here, because eventually Kennard can block back, but he can also work up here. Okay, so you've got everything you want. The problem is we got penetration by 97. What you can't quite understand is this supposed to be just straight split flow, or is this supposed to be a counter that Morton doesn't pull on? Because when you look at the indecisiveness that Morgan's playing with here, you think that it's not a counter. You think that it's like a double-double. They just made a really good call on the strong side. Let me rewind this and show you what I mean more specifically. So obviously you look at Elgin Jenkins' first step is not going. It's going to lose against most players that are penetrating players. He steps in front of himself. But Jordan Morgan, I don't know where he's going here. He steps out. He looks like it's pass pro almost. And even sure, if you're sifting, if you're shifting out to this guy outside who's just off, you can see his hand here. Okay, but why are you leaving 97, particularly if he's a 2-eye? This is bottom line. This is another kind of what we just call busted play that doesn't indicate you have a high level of competency, particularly in this. There's a lot of things that go on in, loud crowd noise. We talked about it last week. You can see his, you see the head here, you see the head here. And so that, obviously, Jenkins' first step is not great, but I just can't figure out, again, you don't, if a 2-eye's on you, you don't get out of the way. There's just very, very few scenarios where you get out of the way. I don't understand that. I love this. This is a little bit later in the game now, so you always appreciate now that they're splitting this guy out a little bit. You can even have him split more. So what does that do? That makes this angle higher or this distance longer, right? Or if let's say he moves in to here, then you can bang out if you want. So whoever doesn't remember this scenario, so they get the ball out. I think they're up by. Are they up by 4? They're up by 4. There's minute 51 or 2:11. There's not very much time left in the game, and they get a false start, and so it's 1st and 15. Generally in these situations, you get to a place on the field or down a distance, you're like, okay, it's like we'll go. We feel good and like kind of open up our playbook. This just seems a little bit much, given the fact they haven't been the cleanest in protection recently. Let's talk very specifically with this game. And if you watch the ball snapped on, let's say, the 26.5-yard line, Jordan gets all the way back to the 14-yard line. So that's damn near 12 yards. That is a long, deep drop. And again, if you look at, I don't know, kind of the last couple games against the Cowboys, like they're not getting pressure. So that's okay. And you got your check down. So we finally got a guy who's thinking about a check down here, but he's over 10 yards away. You got everybody occupied. Really, you've got just an absolute ton of space. Even if you call this from the 24.5 or the 26-yard line, excuse me, you're still looking at about 10 yards before you get the nearest defender, and really 15 yards or 14 yards before you get to the linebackers, right? So this is kind of what you want if you can protect. The problem is in this scenario, just given what's happened during the course of the game and how well some of those outside 57 and 41 in particular are playing compared to like what maybe the expected, their expected production during the game. Tough call. Obviously, he steps up, but the edge is already set, and you just watch. It's unfortunate. You're wide. Everybody kind of does a decent job here, and the one guy that's got this singular role, it all starts with your footwork. First step doesn't go anywhere, steps underneath himself. Second step, heel click. Kick, now he's heel clicking again, and he's pointed towards the line of scrimmage. This is, for anybody who's gone through, look at the difference. I guess the easiest way to do is just to point out the difference between these two guys, right? Like, look where he is and look where he is. Obviously, you're going to say, oh, well, Mike, this guy's not as wide. Absolutely. At this point, it doesn't really matter. What you're trying to do is create this profile that reduces kind of opportunities and targets. And what, unfortunately, Rashid's doing right here is kind of maximizing that. And, he goes back to the tape, I'm sure, and he goes, all right, I got it. I just got to be better. And then, obviously with your hands wide, he's in a position, but you take it in the face there. Guy ends up, just making a great football play, huge play in the game. And these are one of those plays, by the way, where, guys start, oh, should you do this? And, Matt looks back and says, oh, look, every indication from film would suggest that that's a safe play call. Now, in the context of this specific game, maybe you play conservative there. If we complain about conservative play calling and then he does that and you get the sack fumble deal, it's like sometimes it's hard. We got bunch under center. So I love what they're doing here because instead of going and running under or a shotgun offset and running away from that bunch set, which is what they were doing in the first half, they go under center. They balance these linebackers out. And now you've got this great backside cut, one of the better plays of the game. This is a great just kind of, I don't know if this is a halftime or in-game adjustment by Matt and the coaching staff, but you just really like what they do here. It looks like they might have canned this. You see Sean Ryan saying, hey, do I go all the way out? There's a guy outside here, actually. Do we go all the way out, or do we just, do the smart thing and just stay in the box? Stay in the box. And he ends up not really doing either in this play, but because we got a good job by Elgton Jenkins of just holding that guy up. And look, we don't get movement. Like, we don't get any movement on that backside guy. But here's the great thing about having a back like Josh Jacobs. First of all, we're handing the ball away from the kind of the line flow. Oh, that's the wrong one. Away from the line flow. Sanborn actually stands in the same spot, but because we got a wide 9 and we can cut this, as long as we get his shoulders turned, like there is a cut out here, and it just turns into a foot race with, which one's going to out-athlete the other. And we got the better athlete. Fantastic run, fantastic job here. Boxy making two guys miss. You love those plays, and you just love the adjustment. I thought this was an important play of the game, so I put it in. Regardless of everything else, like Matt stuck with 3 runs down here. They struggled with a couple of them. Obviously had that, those nonsense new false start calls. But you really like how you stick with this. Hey, we got to punch one of these balls in and do something here. I want to highlight Dontavian Wicks, who just does a great job on the safety coming down here. In these plays, you don't expect a lot of like movement on the line of scrimmage. You're just hoping the guys don't get off. Like 95, don't screw this play up for us. he ends up doing he gets a little bit of penetration, but again, with the way that we're running these plays now, everyone's blocking down. We got a little bit of a lead. He looks like he's kind of trying to fake him out a little bit there. We get what we want. 86, by the way, not the most physical guy, but she's sure as hell trying. I really respect the way he's working, man. He shows up on the tape the last couple of weeks, actually. He's trying to block guys the right way. All right, we motion over from a bunch to more just like a straight trips look. We go back and forth with the running back to see what we got. And this is like one of the signature Jordan Love plays. I know there was a flag here in the defensive secondary as well. But you talk about it. Okay, so we just run. This okay, this isn't railroad. So this is just a crossing route. And they have levels on this. Sometimes you hold that tight end in the middle of the field here. They end up playing man. Here. They pass this off. And so with man, you usually have some sort of spy. I don't know what we're doing right here, but I'm happy he did it because it gave Jordan Love the opportunity to get loose. Obviously, maybe they're just passing off that underneath crosser. Opportunity to get loose and go. We'll watch it from the end zone. And this is the thing, again, when you're talking about, and this happens, man. I remember I got beat in Carolina on a 2-minute drill when I was playing against Detroit, and they had a rookie out of USC. I'm doing him a disrespect by not remembering his name right now. He's a decent player, but he beat me on a chop club rip, and he's not a guy that should beat me at that point in our careers, respectively. I should not have gotten beat. He should have gotten a sack fumble at the end of the game. Chris Wenke was in the game and ended up getting rid of the ball. We ended up winning the game on a touchdown pass. He made a great play, but the guy, like, this happens in regardless. But going into this game, you just don't think that you're going to get beat at the 3 technique position here. We're being a little bit aggressive, maybe. Everyone loves aggressive sets until you miss. That's the thing about the guard. Everyone wants to see a short set until you miss, and then when you miss, it's like, oh man, why'd you short set? But look, I mean, there's no way that's not a sack. Somehow he gets out of it. What a phenomenal play. Jordan Love had some phenomenal plays this game. I mean, he's obviously a really good player, but good Lord. All right. We got 12 again. My favorite personnel group, under center, my favorite action. And what a cut. And talking about it again, the adjustment, they were under a lot of shotgun, weak side zone runs in the beginning. Now we're running downhill, strong side, allowing those tight ends to get involved. They do a pretty good job here. And when I say pretty good job, 41, I think, had been highlighted on the screen for the play prior and just got absolutely moved off the spot by our tight end that created this hole. Again, I think that was 80. Was that 86 or was that 88? We'll take a quick peek. I think that's 86 again. You look over on the left side of the screen at 41 here, and he just does an absolutely phenomenal job of just removing that human. I know that guy's a rookie, but either way. Now, this block is something that you got a bye week, and you're going, all right, you know what? I'm going to work on this. Like, I'm going to work on whatever these two are doing. It's not working very well, and we got to figure that out, because that's another play where you're going, like, I just don't understand from Jenkins' standpoint. I don't understand what he's trying to do. It looks like Morgan's thinking about coming in, but it's not a physical play, and they're obviously looking at, to me, they're looking at, okay, there might be this action here, and they're gonna block that off, and I think they end up doing that. But then, you shouldn't put your hand in. There's a lot of stuff here just mechanically that don't make sense. But then Jenkins loses ground with this foot on his second step, and it kind of opens up the lane for Kenny to make like a really big play here or get a holding call. And, fortunately, we got a violent runner. Look at this cut right here. I dare you. Boy, he's good. First and 10. Here we go. Split. I love this. Love this formation. I show this play again, and we're not harping on anything. We scored 40 points in the game. This situation right here, a lot of the guys that you're watching this, I'm sure you're watching it because of O-line stuff, okay? So there's a couple things going on here. One, it's not right. It don't make sense. This play right here, you've got this double with a 2-eye, and you're playing a downhill. So, we know that we're going to go motion here. Wow, not maybe that much. Motion here, and then we're coming this way, right? This is a chance to pick this one up, put it on the ground, and just put two hands and drive through, their best defensive tackle who you played against for the last couple of years and is probably a mentor of yours and you want to prove something. Now, I know you're not going to get great help here just because just because the mechanics of what they're asking him to do are very, very difficult, and he's still getting used to the position. But you've got inside help. And basically, when I'm working with the guys, I go, look, on these, we call these like slip blocks or gap blocks. If you have inside help, these are the plays, like you get paid for pass blocking, you get famous for run blocking. This is a play to get famous on. This is a play to blow the doors off that guy and really show him, show the league what kind of power you got. And, we take a wide first step. You're just going laterally, even though this is kind of more of a downhill play. And you just get thrown off the ball and end up giving it up. And look, bad plays happen all the time. We just want to fix this. If I'm Jordan Morgan, I just want to, especially we got inside leverage with 50, I want to pick this one up, put it down. I want to get this second step vertical, and I want to attack Kenny Clark. I don't want him to attack me right here. This is a recipe for disaster. What a good job they do on the backside here, because I got Sanborn holding. So you see on the backside where Sean Ryan takes his 2 and then just stops and holds and just try again. You're looking at it like, okay, I'm the bumper. I'm trying to just get vertical, let him drive vertical. Let me create this alleyway and let that guy come to us. All right, 1st and 10 on the 26. I think this is the check down to Josh Jacobs. We just go shift across to change our formation, loosen it up a little bit, and we talk about it all the time with this defense. You're rushing for. They ended up with the shift. They end up showing their hand early, and they got everybody off the ball. They do such a smart thing, and they take the tight end and run him right through these two to suck that guy in. We got the check down now, and it's open season. And of course, again, anytime you get your, the best guy with the ball in his hands, the ball at or around the line of scrimmage with nobody in front of him for 5 yards, you feel really good about your opportunity here. Again, one of the bigger plays in the game, makes that linebacker miss. Fantastic job. All right, 3rd and 14. This is the play that everybody's talking about. So, everyone's talking about the build-up to this. The only thing I would say here to add is there needs to be a sense of urgency. It needs to be expressed in practice. And everybody talks about, obviously, like all of the, situational football is so important. And you just don't know how much time they're practicing on these different things, whether it's the special teams, whether it's the third downs, whether it's the end of the game scenarios, right? You just don't know. And the other thing you don't know as a coaching staff is like how much is being absorbed, because you only get into these situations every once in a while. And I can just tell you, from firsthand experience, when you're putting together a practice plan, it's difficult to figure out like, all right, something new happened this week in the league. Like we need to address that play with everybody, and we're going to go through that play. And maybe because of that, your end of the game stuff maybe doesn't get addressed that week, or something else came up. Maybe your third down and your 2-minute package doesn't get addressed not 2 minute, but these situations, minute and 10 left, you're on the 30-yard line, you need a touchdown to score, you got one timeout, blah, 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 go, right? That's how we practice these scenarios. They give the team the objective, they give them the scenario, they give them the situation, and then they go practice it and then they review it later. Maybe some of that stuff just goes out the window, because oftentimes what happens in the league is like, on Monday or Tuesday, they'll get some of the clips together of things that happened in the league that were different, whether it was like a timeout that was called to knock 10 seconds off the clock, whether it was some sort of like botched call that put the ball in the, made it a quick turnaround and they hit a shot play. Those plays go up on the board. They show them, they talk about them. Maybe those are the plays they decide to go through in practice. I'm not talking about the Green Bay Packers necessarily. I'm talking about in general. But this is the kind of stuff that happens, and maybe that's why some of the stuff that kind of showed up in this game that prevented us from taking a W. It's just not uncommon is the best way to put it, right? But they're not obviously in a play in a scenario they want to be. The time's clicking down. The thing that you want to point out here that's just kind of scary is like they should have lost this game. If that ball does anything but bounce straight down, and if that clock announcer is that clock tick management guy for the Dallas Cowboys, I bet you he got fired today. If that doesn't happen, you got problems. And the other thing is, in the most important of scenarios, look what you got. You got 3 dudes who can't see the person they're blocking. Now, Elgton Jenkins doesn't have anybody on him, so he's in good shape. But it's another bad deal. And look at what happens. I mean, most important play of the game. Look what happens to poor Rasheed Walker, man. Like, and this is where, everybody can say we're practicing and this and that. Like, I get it. But, like, football is hard. And if you're going to change, then one thing you have to do is, like, you have to change your stance. This stance allows you to do what you want in this scenario. It just doesn't. Like, as soon as you point your head the other way, as soon as you have to, swivel your head around, open this foot up, you're gonna kick this one out. Like it's body mechanics. You're not gonna be able to help it. But you watch this first step, bad first step. Second bad. Now you're done. You're catching, like right here. I'm telling you, he pumps it one time. He shifts to the left. Anything to like in any other scenario in the game, he's probably not ripping that thing right there because it's not a good look. He just knows the clock's off and he doesn't time. So it's like 1, 2, 3. Pump hitch 1, 2, 3, or throw 1, 2, 3 hitch throw. But there's no time for messing around. If he doesn't get rid of this ball, we lose the football game. And a lot of it, in my opinion, is because we don't address the snap count two weeks in a row. So I think there's still a lot of meat on the bone. These guys are doing well. You're going to get when you get your guys back, this is going to be an even better football team. I'm talking about the offensive line in particular, offensively.
All right, so as you can see, there's just a lot going on in this football game, and it doesn't come down to the last play, but sometimes when you think about what teams need to work on, plays like that are an indicator of kind of a larger area of opportunity. Certainly sometimes you look at these games and look, you score 40 points. The Dallas Cowboys are the worst defense in the National Football League from a yard standpoint. That's a fact, and part of it. It wasn't helped obviously yesterday, but you see your playmakers, your Romeo Doubs, your Jordan Loves, your Matthew Goldens, and certainly your Josh Jacobs. Those guys are special players in the National Football League. They are doing some extraordinary things. Our offensive line is a work in progress, and a monster part of that is the fact that Zach Tom's not playing. A big part of that is that not necessarily that Aaron Banks is not playing, but because we've moved Elgton Jenkins and to center and all of these, like all of it impacts, and it's not going to be as smooth as I'm sure they would like in the locker room or the meeting room. The reality is they're going to have a really good offensive line 8 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now, when everybody gets healthy and they kind of get their groove. And Matt LaFleur has a good, healthy understanding of what certain people are good at. You see the lack of maybe decisiveness that leads to some lack of physicality at certain positions there, but all of that stuff just a matter of time. You see the progression from Sean Ryan from a year ago to this year. And those are the kind of things that show you that there's good coaching going on in the room, that people are developing. And we just can't have this expectation that people are going to walk out ready-made from day one. So these, regardless of the score, these are fun tapes to watch. For me, I certainly enjoy part of this is just putting on that, like, how do I beat people mentality and try to break that down. And I hope from an audience standpoint, you guys are enjoying it as well. So listen, hit me up, Mike Wahle 68. Check us out at Process to Perform on YouTube. I think this will be on the Pack-A-Day podcast as well. Thanks to Andy Herman, as always, for letting me join in and be part of that. And we'll talk to you next time, guys. Thanks.